Hello there, everyone. Welcome to the World of Momos podcast. And on this episode of Reflections and Reactions, we have a very good friend of mine. We have Richard Inman with us, and this is probably the only episode that I've recorded so far where I haven't had a chat before the episode. Because whenever I start chatting with Richard, it goes on for hours and hours and hours. It's like, no, let's get the recording done first. We'll chat later.
Do you know what it is? He doesn't trust me. He doesn't trust me not to say something really bad on his channel. That's what it is. He's thinking he's going to get my channel vaporized if I don't pre-record this. So
you're probably the only one of the only few people I actually trust. So, so yes,
that's very kind. That's very kind.
So we haven't sort of discussed what finer details we're going to talk about. It was a very broad thing, but let me just tell everyone what we're going to sort of broadly talk about. Feels like I'm setting an agenda for a meeting or something, like like we are at a hearing.
Well, I haven't got a clue what we're going to talk about. So, listen, this is one of those. It's going to be one of those gotcha interviews, isn't it, Momus? I see. Richard Inman said this on such and such a date.
Exactly. Everyone, welcome to the live hearing of Richard Inman. Who stand here accused of being a very good friend and an absolute nutter.
The good thing is, if you're a man of no reputation, you've no reputation to lose. Moments, do you know what I mean, mate?
What I really want to do is I want to do like a brief intro, like who Richard is, so like Richard can give us a bit of an intro of himself. There's a very good episode actually he did with Liam Tufts recently. I'll put a link over there. If you want to know about Richard, I mean, that's a very brilliant episode, and Liam is like really good at getting the best out of people anyway. So that will be link over there. We don't need to repeat that because he's done a very good episode. So we just briefly get to know Richard, and then we'll get into the topic about the rise of Christianity, or also the importance of Christianity within Britain and the rise of it, and why any movement that we're doing politically, socially, whatever, it needs to involve the spirit of Christianity. And then at the end, we have a segment for paid subscribers only. So either if you're a paid subscriber on my Substack, theworldofmomos.com, or a YouTube member, which is part of being a Mo Squad. I'm just calling it Mo Squad right now because I don't have any other name for it. If you're a member for that, then you can access that segment, and that was going to be the silly questions with Richard Inman. And that's when both of us have to answer these random silly questions that I still haven't found out which questions they are. They're going to be that random, and both of us will have to answer that. Anyways, so let's get into it, Richard. Tell us about you.
Well, what do you want to know? I mean, I'm quite old and grizzled and grey.
See that.
And I was a lot younger 8 years ago before I started doing this. Pretty much. I mean, it feels like I do it full time. It takes up most of my energy. I don't have any hobbies. Well, I have couple of hobbies, but they're just really to keep me fit and stop me from ballooning up to about the size of giant haystacks. Even though the beard makes me look a bit like giant haystacks. Now I don't know if you know who Giant Haystacks is, Momus. I mean, that would be maybe before your time, but he was a wrestler. Before you had WWF wrestling, we used to have Saturday afternoon wrestling, and there was two great rivals. And anybody in the comments will know these two people I'm going to talk about. One was called Big Daddy, who actually had a girl's name. I think it was called Shirley. That's why he was so hard. So you had Big Daddy, who was a little... I think he's dead now. I think they're both dead, actually. Big Daddy was a little fat bald bloke who used to wrestle, and Giant Haystacks was a big, tall, fat bloke. And they used to wrestle and throw each other about a wrestling ring on a Saturday afternoon. Before we had Sky TV, before we had pay-per-view boxing, that was back when you used to be able to watch boxing for nout. You could go to the pub, you could have 10 pints watching a Baron McGregor fight, go in the car park after the boxing, and practice your techniques on the other locals, right? That was back
probably more exciting than anything Netflix.
Way more exciting. Yeah. So I'm a child of the 60s. Went through my teenage years in the 1980s in Middlesbrough. It was rough enough. It was interesting. First came into contact, which is relevant to what we're going to talk about, I'm sure, with Islam, with the Pakistani community in Middlesbrough in the 1980s. If you want to find out more about that, it's in the Liam Tufts interview, but it is very relevant to what shaped my life to a great extent in terms of my political philosophy and to a certain extent my religious and spiritual philosophy as well. And one of the reasons being when I came across Islam in school as a teenager, I was actually impressed by it, believe it or not, because they were
Mm.
pious.
Mm.
Well, they had an appearance of piety,
Yeah.
and they were very enthusiastic about the faith, which I found completely lacking
Mm.
in British people, because I think everyone hankers after the supernatural. And I think that could be a reason why a lot of useful idiots are actually converting to Islam now.
Yeah.
White English people are converting to Islam because, hold on a minute, these guys are pretty bold about what they believe. They're pretty
Mm.
fearless about what they believe. They're
Yeah.
willing to die for what they believe. That's the sort of thing I want to get involved in. I never
They
became a
give
Muslim,
that
thankfully.
popular shtick, don't they? They give that popular shtick that all the politicians give, right? Like that's why people have been following Tories, Labour, and now Reform.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they don't dig deep. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think, when I was growing up, was exposed to Islam. Middles was quite a violent town. There
Mm.
was a lot of just casual violence, and it was just a rough place to grow up. And
Mm.
obviously, there's no CCTV in those days, so people could get into real tear ups and go home black and blue, and nobody ever
Mm.
went to the police. Nobody ever went to court, and that was just. My life as a teenager. Joined the military when I was 17 and a half, and it was more of the same. Came to Northern Ireland. Again, during the Troubles, it was violent. It was
Mm.
dangerous. I found it exciting and exhilarating. I wasn't overly worried by anything that really happened in Northern Ireland. There's a few scary moments, a couple of attempts on my life, but I'm still here, and
Mm.
that's what nearly 40 years ago, 1987. I
Mm.
came to Northern Ireland, met my wife here, settled here, and when I came out of the military, I made a conscious decision not to be involved in fighting and trouble. I was going to,
Be a
knuckle
square.
down, and basically,
Yeah.
knuckle down and be a good boy and
Yeah.
be a good, dutiful husband and father, and I did that, and I walked away from any sort of violence and aggro that I would have been in my younger years, and built a career in marketing, advertising,
Mm.
and about 2006, no, sorry, not 2000, it's 1996, when I was
Mm.
28, I had what you could call an encounter with God. And I had a vision over
Mm.
3 different nights
Mm.
of a man being crucified. And I could see this image as clearly as I can see
Mm.
you.
Mm.
On this screen, I could see the image of a man being crucified, and I wasn't on drugs. I didn't do drugs.
Mm.
I wasn't an
Mm.
alcoholic, so it wasn't some sort of hallucination brought on
Yeah.
by substances. It was what you'd call a vision. And
Mm.
when something like that happens, you can't ignore it. I always
No.
I was kind of a positive agnostic. I kind of
Mm.
believed, but I just needed a little bit of evidence to push me over the
Everyone's
line.
like everyone. Don't you find like everyone naturally is like agnostic, anyways? Like
Yeah,
if you want to believe in something, or if you are compelled towards it, you have to make those active decisions, right? Even when someone is an atheist, they have to make an active decision to be an atheist. Like
I agree. I
yeah.
don't believe. I've said this to people before. I've said, and I think I've converted a lot of atheists to agnosticism,
Mm.
which isn't. It's not the full
It's
deal
the
that we
first
want to
step.
go. But I think a lot of people I've spoken to have said, "Well, are you sure you're an atheist?"
Mm.
Like, an atheist is someone who knows for
Mm.
sure that there is no God, there's no supernatural power, there's no
Mm.
creator. I think that's a very arrogant position to have,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because you can't have all knowledge. Nobody
Mm.
knows
Mm.
everything about everything. To be an atheist, you must be to be an atheist, you need to be a god, because you must
Yeah.
have all knowledge about everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Same.
so
Act of
that's what
faith.
people are saying. People that are atheists are saying, I'm God.
Mm.
Okay. But
Mm.
I think the other thing is, almost, when it comes to faith, and I always say I'm not a very good Christian. I try, I'm
Mm.
really not.
Mm.
But I think when it comes to faith, it's not something that you attain; it's something you're given.
Mm.
Faith is a
Mm.
gift from God. So if somebody's agnostic, it's they're just needing a little bit more
Yeah.
information, or a
Yeah.
little bit more of the supernatural in their lives, or
Mm.
something, that sense of the presence of God
Yeah. That
that
connection.
convinces you
Yeah.
that that's God's real, or reading a text,
Mm.
obviously not the Quran, but
Yeah.
reading the Bible. You read the Bible, or
Yeah.
you read a Christian book, and you go, okay, that's really
Mm.
got me,
Mm.
and you have that crisis moment where you either say, yeah, okay, this is true,
Mm.
and this is what I'm going to spend the rest of my life thinking about, trying to
Mm.
live, or it's not true. And I've had up and downs like yo-yo. There's times I've never lost
Mm.
my faith, but there's times when I've behaved as if I
Mm.
haven't got faith, and I've behaved in pretty
Mm.
dreadful manner from time to time, which I'm ashamed of. But that's not what it's about. It's it's about having that constant belief in a relationship with God through Jesus Christ and the power of the Holy Spirit. So yeah, that happened in 1996 when I was 28, and I just became obsessed with Christianity and with faith and with everything about Christianity. And I never studied formally, but informally studied every single text I could get, every single book I could read about the faith. And that's what I did for a long time. I was involved in mission work in Sierra Leone for about 10 years. I was a trustee of a charity that was giving humanitarian relief to children, and primarily children and young women that were destitute and were going to die if we didn't help them. And a very small amount of money. I'm not a rich man. I gave, I don't know, probably 30 grand or something over the 10 years. So it wasn't like I was giving millions of pounds, because I didn't have millions of pounds. But that made a massive impact on the people's lives that we were trying to save and help. And there was children that would have perished that definitely went to university, went through school, and so on and so forth. So that was very rewarding. Went out there a couple of times myself. And that, again, it's like anything. I mean, obviously, Momish, you've been to Pakistan, third world countries, a culture shock. People in the West, they talk about, the UK becoming a third world country. I get what they're saying, but it's not a third world country yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It will be. It will be if we're not careful. And that's what
it's in the transition.
It's in the it's transitioning. It's transitioning. We're going through the change. But yeah, so that was my life up until 2017. And obviously I took a close interest in politics, but never really got actively involved in it. Brexit woke me up. 2015, started being more active in politics online and social media. 2017, there was the dreadful terror attacks, Ariana Grande, Borough Market, Westminster Bridge, all carried out by Muslims. Of course, there was nothing to see. The government was doing the best to, cover it up. Andy Burnham was saying, "Don't look back in anger," and getting people to tattoo bumblebees on the backsides to, instead of actually getting angry. Where we should be angry, we should be when it comes to terrorism of any sort. We should be extremely angry because it is there deliberately to subvert democracy, to murder people, to murder innocent people. In fact, the more innocent people, especially when it comes to Islamist terrorism, the more innocent people they kill, the better in their books. So we should be absolutely spitting blood about it. And so should the Muslim community. And what I find is, Momus, and again, I'm going to go off on a little tangent. What I find is that when there's a terrorist attack, instead of the Muslim community and the security establishment and the government saying, right, okay, Muslim community, what the heck's going on here? Who are these people? Get a grip of them. Maybe they do that in the background. I've never heard them say it publicly. And the Muslim community double down and go, oh, everyone's getting Islamophobic. They're going to attack our mosques. They're going to attack us. It's nothing to do with us. It's nothing to do with the Quran. It's nothing to do with Hadith. It's not our fault. Well, let's have the discussion about that. Let's have the debate about that. Let's see why ISIS, Al Qaeda, and the Muslim Brotherhood inspired groups do what they do. And I think we'll find out it is absolutely about theology. Whether it's a wrong reading of theology, I'm not an Islamic scholar. To me, it seems pretty much coming straight from the text, and that's
it's according, it's pretty much on line with the life of Muhammad. So and it's sort of like on the case of like moderate Muslims as well. It's like, why doesn't it morally perturb them in the same way that it would any non-Muslim, right? It's because on some level they kind of agree, and I've been saying it for a very long time. I've been saying it for a very long time. I've had enough. Like, I don't care about them anymore, right? If you're not going to solve your problems, then someone else is will need to solve the problem.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely. And I mean, this is where we're coming to, and obviously we've got to take action through government. If the government doesn't take action, then we're in for a very, very dark period of time. And the problem is as well, Mums, I've been thinking a lot about this lately. If we start doing what America's doing, and we have an ICE type agency, well, there's going to have to be a force of men that's raised up in the country by the government, a government body, not vigilantes. A government body's going to have to be raised up, and their job is going to be arresting and deporting people, very similar to what ICE is doing. And I don't know what you think. I'm convinced that Birmingham, Bradford, all those population areas where there's a very large Muslim population will burn. They will go
Do you remember?
bonkers.
Do you remember? Like there was some incident. I can't remember when it was. They were trying to take away someone who was an illegal migrant somewhere in the neighborhood, and the whole neighborhood came out. And it wasn't just the immigrants. It was like the English, like liberal English as well and stuff like. And they didn't let the people take them, right?
I think it was
And they
Hare
like
Hills in Leeds.
barricaded their
It was Leeds.
whole van and stuff.
It
Yeah,
was Hare Hill and Leeds, and
yeah, yeah,
it was Romas. There was a
yeah.
Roma family was going to be taken into care. Roma children were going to be
Hmm.
taken into care. The Roma community rioted. I think I'm not sure whether it was a Bangladeshi. There was Muslims involved in the rioting as well.
Hmm.
I'm not sure whether the whites got involved, but
Yeah.
there was a whole
But
absolutely.
it's happened even before that as well. It's happened
Yeah.
even before that.
Oh
Like,
yeah. Well, I
every
mean,
time.
you look at what happened with the Manchester airport
Hmm. Hmm.
assault.
Yeah.
The Muslims put a mob outside the
Hmm.
police station where those
Hmm.
men were being held. And guess
Hmm.
what? They let them go. And guess what?
Exactly.
None of them are in prison yet.
Yeah.
One's been found guilty, he still hasn't been sentenced.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So that they're two fairly small incidents. You imagine if you
Hmm.
start
Yeah.
you imagine if
Smart scaled
you
one.
start
Yeah.
on the watch list, 40,000, okay, let's pick these guys up.
Yeah.
Just wait and see what happens.
Yeah.
Just wait and see
Exactly.
what happens. So,
Yeah.
it's like everything. People talk about mass deportations. I want this to happen. I want mass
Yeah.
deportations. I want people that are here. I'll be honest with you, Moses. Anyone that is that is not a British national that
Hmm.
goes on a
Hmm.
pro
Hmm.
Hamas demonstration, I want them arrested. I want them put in an internment camp, and I want them deported.
Yeah. To
Simple
Gaza.
as. Simple as.
Deport them to Gaza. But
Yeah, yeah,
now, okay, so like to get back and close a loop on the story
yeah.
of Richard.
Hmm.
So when did you come into the Tommy Robinson phase?
Yeah, well, 2017, we
Hmm.
there was a couple of lads from the Northwest started a group called Veterans Against Terrorism. Obviously, I'm not boasting, but I'm quite good at writing speeches. I'm quite good at
Hmm.
delivering
Hmm.
speeches. I'm quite good at writing mission statements.
I've
I
heard
can do
them. It's
websites.
pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, I can do all that sort of stuff. So I had a skill set. It's a bit
Hmm.
like Liam Neeson. I had a very specific skill set.
Yeah.
I'll find you and
Yeah.
I'll read a message to you. So I basically became an unofficial spokesman for them. I never led the group. I mean, it was
Hmm.
just I could make speeches and I was pretty good at strategy. So I suppose kind of a way it is leading it. But then yeah.
Hmm.
But anyway, so I did that for about a year, and again, it's like anything. People lose interest. They kind of lose their way. The group kind of just dissipated, split. Stopped doing demos. So before the first demo that we did, I'd been chatting to Tommy. This was one in September 2017. So I'd been chatting to Tommy about what we were doing, and he was loving it because obviously veterans had never really got involved in this. And obviously, because of my background and because I knew a lot about Islam and
Yeah.
I'd read a lot about Islam, I'd read the Quran, I'd read chunks of the Hadith. So I kind of came out of the box knowing
Hmm.
exactly what I was talking about. I getting so annoyed when, and it's going to sound a little bit elitist, but I get so annoyed when people bimble into the movement. They don't have a clue what they're talking about.
Yeah.
They get a big platform, a big voice,
Hmm.
and they've nothing to say.
Yeah.
And I've seen that happen since 2017.
Yeah.
And I'm trying, it's like, okay,
That harms the cause. That harms the cause
they harm the
because
cause. I've got,
yeah.
let me
Yeah.
explain that. Do you want me to
Hmm.
draw you this with crayons so you understand simply what I'm saying?
Exactly.
The
Yeah.
Quran is not a good
Yeah.
book. Islam is not a good idea. That's pretty much all you need to know.
Hmm.
Okay. If you start saying,
Yeah.
oh, well, it's not about religion. No, it
Yeah.
is about religion. It's not about
Exactly.
skin color. It's not
Oh,
about
it's the
DNA.
radical ones. Oh, it's the
It's
Islam. It's
only the
like
bad ones.
just get
I've,
out.
I've got a mate. He's a taxi driver. He's a lovely fella. I've got a mate. He
Yeah.
cuts my hair. He's a lovely.
Yeah.
I'm sure he is. I'm
Yeah.
sure he's a lovely fella. But
Yeah.
just be very careful. If he sees you on a demo and he
Hmm.
gets a cutthroat razor out, just be very careful.
Hmm.
But, but so I started in that in 2017. Got to know Tommy. What I realized straight away, whenever I kind of landed doing this, whenever I came to England, I realized that we needed a political solution.
Hmm.
We needed to be in a position where we could transition very quickly from having a street movement. Because think of the potential for disaster when you've got 70,000 football. Let's just be honest, football lads are football hooligans. They're handy lads. They're not
Yeah.
scared of anything.
Hmm.
They're bold as brass. You've got 70,000 of them. You've got a couple of thousand veterans who, I mean, I'm a weapons instructor. I could teach people how to, fire rifles, do section attacks, all that sort of stuff. Most of the lads that were involved in it were section commanders or sergeants or whatever, so they're NCO. So everyone has the ability to train an army, basically, right? So you've got football hooligans, you've got loads of veterans. Now, we never did this, but the potential was there for something like that to happen. And I said straight away, we need to be political. First of all, we need to diagnose the disease, which is radical Islam, which people even then were not diagnosing.
Yeah.
People saying, "Oh, it's all extremism." Yeah, of course we're against all extremism. Nobody wants Nazis goose stepping down their streets. Nobody wants the far left communists or the globalists. We're against all those extremes. Yes, but the primary danger that we were facing then, and I still think it's the danger we're facing now. And, sometimes people say to me, "Why do you go on about Islam so much?" Right? Well, the reason I go on about Islam so much is because that is the biggest strategic threat to Western Europe. It's not Russia. The Russian thing can get sorted out. If there was the will, the Russian thing can get sorted out. Putin's an evil scumbag, right? But he's not Adolf Hitler. People have got to realise that. He's not going to send tanks into Downing Street. Whereas we've already had Muslims praying outside Downing Street on numerous occasions. And that is, they are staking their territory. They're claiming their territory. So the first thing we had to do was identify the problem, that there's a problem with radical Islam. Okay, we'll give them that. We'll say radical Islam, okay, just for the sake of placating all those
at least
all those are now fainting and swooning because we're saying bad things about Islam.
Yeah.
So there's a problem with radical Islam. And once we've identified that, then we've got to find a solution. And the only peaceful solution is gaining political power. So I got in touch through an intermediary with Gerard Batten, and I said, look, I spoke to all the veterans, says, guys, we need to do this political thing. I spoke to the lad that was representing the football lads, John, and we met with Gerard Batten in October 2017. That's how far this goes back. 2017, we met with Gerard Batten, who wasn't the leader of UKIP then. He was an MEP. Gerard was a great guy. I would say the best British leader that Britain never had. You know what I mean? He got the problem back in 2017. Yeah. So we basically took over UKIP. And of course, there were still people in UKIP that were Farage loyalists. Farage didn't get this, still doesn't get it, right? Yeah. In fact, I think it's more cynical than that. I think Farage knows exactly what's going on. He just doesn't care.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
If he can benefit off whatever, he'll benefit off it.
Or he either doesn't care or he thinks we can make a deal. He's been talking to Donald Trump too much. He thinks we can do the art of the deal with Islamists. Well, you can't. It's not going to happen. And I also think the deep state has also given up. Because I think every single faction and sector of the British state has been compromised, and they've come to the conclusion, like Farage said in his infamous speech, we can't win. We can't win against Islam. Yeah. Well, if you have the political will and you have the political power, you can will. It's not going to be nice.
Yeah.
It's going to be extreme.
How will it be? These ideologically driven people who are ready to kill themselves because they will get the most rewards if they do kill themselves. How can it be easy, peaceful? It's not going to be. But we have to have the backbone to actually deal with it.
I've got to cut in on this. This is a bit of light relief, right? I wish I had the video. I could show you it, right? Yeah. I was doom scrolling through. I doom scroll through Twitter every morning for research purposes for my little morning show that I do, and then I'll do a review on some of these tweets that have been appearing. On one of the tweets, there's this, I don't know whether she was Pakistani or Bangladesh, just a young Muslim girl, quite pretty girl, she's all hijabbed up and all that. She sounds quite nice. She's quite a pleasant girl. She's saying, well, when we get to paradise, all the young women will be beautiful again, and they'll have perfect bodies, and our men will have perfect bodies and all the rest of it. And I'm thinking, okay. She obviously didn't get the memo about the 72 virgins, right?
Yeah.
And she said, and you'll be with your husband and you'll love your husband forever. I was thinking, you might love your husband. There'll be 72 hookers that are going to be doing the same.
They're the 72 who's. They're not even humans. They're some sort of other beings.
Exactly. These, and I just thought that poor, but, she was so sincere. And she was so, we're going to get perfect bodies and everything's good. It was like, it was kind of like an Islamic paradise version of Love Island. Do you know what I mean? They all think they're going to be lying on these lounges, getting fed with grapes, and But I just can't understand how the wife is going to be happy,
isn't it? They're trying to just justify it in their head, so they don't.
Yeah, But
you know.
how's she going to be
Yeah,
happy with hubby having 72 virgins?
yeah.
When,
Well, they are not going to be there, are they? So
no, they're not going to be. No, 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 no,
exactly.
no. No, no. It's
So,
all just
the
just
yeah, go
just a
on, go on.
note to
Sorry.
anyone that's watching that's a Muslim.
Hmm.
It's all a lie.
Yeah,
Muhammad
yeah,
was a liar and a false
yeah,
prophet. It's all
yeah.
lies. Anything you read in that book,
Hmm.
ain't true.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing as well, like it needs to be said that abruptly as well, is so that people can save their souls in a way. Like
No,
we don't
that's
want
why I'm saying
people.
that
Yeah,
sincerely. And I said
exactly,
that this morning. I said,
exactly.
look, if, in my opinion, and
Hmm.
again, I believe it's a well-founded opinion, and I believe we've got 2,000 years of Christian history and 3,000 years of Jewish and Christian history to prove it.
Hmm.
In my opinion, there is only one revelation, and it's
Hmm.
in the Old and New Testament, the Judeo-Christian canon.
Hmm.
That is what is the truth. And
Yeah,
anything that's come after that, if you are following that, you are being deceived and
yeah,
you are lost.
yeah,
So you are
yeah,
spiritually lost. So I say this because a lot of people don't have the guts to say this to Muslims. And I say this very
yeah.
sincerely as a Christian. And if I wasn't saying this as a Christian, I wouldn't be doing you any favors. Now, you
Hmm.
might want to come and kill me. I don't really care,
Yeah.
because the truth is, if you continue to follow Muhammad, you will be lost forever.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's
Yeah,
what the Bible
yeah,
teaches,
yeah,
because there's only
yeah,
one God,
yeah.
and he's only revealed in the person
Hmm.
of the Lord Jesus Christ.
Hmm.
And if you try to go any other way, you're lost. That's the message of the Holy Bible.
Yeah.
So, and I've got to
So
say that.
yeah, no, no, that needs to be said. So UKIP, then UKIP, and did you start working with Tommy like in 2017 at that
Yeah,
time?
yeah,
Or
yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Well, what we did, I wanted to get Tommy involved in UKIP because, again,
Hmm. As
Tommy.
like sort of like moving that street movement into
Yeah,
politics.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, you see, there wasn't a street movement in 20. Tommy didn't have anything to do with the street movement in
yeah.
2017. He was doing journalism, so he was working with Rebel,
Hmm.
and then he went out on his own, and
Hmm.
he was making some great content. I mean, some of the stuff
Yeah.
he was doing was just absolutely, and it was hilarious as well. I mean,
Hmm.
the thing is about Tommy, right? He's funny, right?
Yeah, he is.
He's actually a
Yeah.
very funny
Hmm.
guy. He's very sharp. He's very witty.
Hmm.
He's extremely brave.
Hmm.
So, you do stuff with Tommy, and we did like the speakers corners thing, the
Hmm.
speakers corner thing, where like we turn up and about 10,000 people would turn up because Tommy's going. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I go on my own. There's 15 people turn up. Tommy turns up. There's a
Yeah.
mob there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, and then we did demos. We did, obviously we got the whole thing going with a street movement actually in 2018. So we had
Hmm.
the football lads, we had the veterans, we had loads of UKIP supporters, we had Tommy's people,
Hmm.
so people that probably maybe has been in the EDL and all that sort of stuff. So there's a coming together, and we started doing fairly big demos, nothing compared to what we're doing now.
Hmm.
But for then, it was like we were getting sort of 10, 20,000 on the
Hmm.
streets. In October 2017, we'd like 70,000 people on the streets, most of them men,
Hmm.
most of them football lads.
Yeah.
That was an awesome thing to see. You just saw these men that you just knew were fighting men,
Hmm.
taking a stand for the country. And when we marched, there was no flags, there was no Union Jacks, and that was deliberate because we
Hmm.
knew that we'd be branded as some far right,
Yeah. Hmm.
conspiracy. And we marched through London, and you could have heard a pin drop. Like,
Hmm.
it was almost a silent march. We
Hmm.
got to Westminster Bridge, laid a wreath, and then we dispersed. But that was very, very ominous. And I
Hmm.
think the security services saw that and thought, okay, this isn't Tommy Robinson. This is something
Yeah.
that's now adding
Yeah.
to Tommy. So
Yeah.
so it's Tommy Robinson doing whatever he did, and he always got big crowds when he's doing the EDL and all that sort of stuff.
Hmm.
But this wasn't organised by Tommy. This was football lads just coming
Hmm.
together,
Hmm.
firms from all over the country,
Yeah.
literally firms from
Hmm.
everywhere up and down the country. And that was a very, very proud moment, I think, for every single person that was
Hmm.
involved in those marches. I had the privilege of speaking at that
Hmm.
event. It was great. I mean, absolutely fun.
Hmm.
Fair play to the football lads. I've
Yeah.
always bigged up the football lads and the lads that organise them, because all of their demos, nearly all of those demos, were predominantly peaceful.
Hmm.
Time to time, things kicked off, but most of the time they
Yeah.
were totally peaceful, which was
Yeah.
amazing. So yeah, so we did the UKIP thing. Tommy was involved in the UKIP thing. Tommy was doing his own demos then as well. So Tommy did the Day of Freedom in May 2018, beginning of May 2018. That was absolutely massive,
Hmm.
superb event. And then, of course, the state did what they always do. They threw him in prison.
Hmm.
can't remember. It was the groom. He went to one of the grooming trials, and he
Oh
was
yeah,
just
I
filming it
was
on his phone,
outside. Yeah,
and they nicked him
yeah,
and put him in prison for 6 months.
yeah.
You know,
Mm,
and he was in real danger. And of course, we had free Tommy demos and so on. Danny Tomo did
mm,
a great job of that. Danny Tomo
mm,
took the lead in the free Tommy demos,
yeah.
and there was a lot of really good stuff happened in terms of galvanizing people and bringing people together. So
Mm,
this movement's it's like, obviously the EDL was like 2010, 2009,
mm,
2010 to 2014. Then there was a kind of pause, and then it all started again.
mm,
2017 with those terrorist attacks, and it's got bigger and bigger and bigger as the British public have woken up to the fact
yeah.
that we have the British public. You see, this is where these vile, disgusting, this one vile, disgusting culture, and the left with their vile, disgusting
Mm,
culture, have taken advantage of the good nature of the British people, because British
mm,
people are nice,
yeah,
tolerant people,
yeah.
not because of the skin color, because of
Mm,
Christianity, right?
mm,
Because of the Church of England and Methodism
mm,
and evangelical
yeah.
Christianity have made the
Mm,
British people a law-abiding, gentle, kind
mm,
culture. Even though most people don't practice that religion anymore, it
yeah.
goes down to their parents, grandparents, and so on and so forth, all the way back to the 1800s and before. So the British people are a very patient, kind people.
Mm,
But I think they're now at breaking point,
yeah.
and I think they're seeing it's not even a question of the terrorism's like not even an issue. It's
Yeah.
the massive demographic change and
Yeah.
the super on steroids Islamization of the country,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
fact that Muslims are being
Mm,
treated as a top tier people,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
the on the whole
But
predominantly.
everyone else has been like treated as top tier apart from the native Brits.
Well,
But
I don't think that's necessarily true. I don't think necessarily with some of the sort of West Indians and other minorities, but the Muslim community have been
mm,
given a preferential place.
yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
doubt about that.
Yeah.
What other group are having their religion protected by law? What other
Yeah.
group
Yeah.
are having
Yeah.
legislation passed
Mm,
that says if you say anything
mm,
about Muslimness, you're going to have not committed an offence? They're very clever. They're not saying it's an offence, but it
mm,
will be an offence if
yeah.
these lefties stay in power for
Mm,
more than this one term.
yeah.
You can guarantee the next time there's a general election, an Islamophobia law
Yeah.
will get passed if they
Yeah.
get the right
Yeah.
numbers.
Most definitely, because they'll put it in their manifesto next time.
Yeah,
So I mean, just to talk about that, then it came to the point of where we first met as well in London,
yeah,
and that was before we started the Unite the Kingdom sort of a thing, right?
yeah.
And then from then on, um,
But
y-
we met
we,
before that, Mo. We've done stuff before that. Before you
have
know,
we?
yeah, definitely, man, definitely. I'm just
Yeah, I think
almost, I'm
I
almost
can't.
certain we've done stuff. Yeah, we had. We've done stuff.
Yeah,
We done lives and
yeah.
stuff before the. I think you did something with Tommy, and then I got in touch with you. I think
Oh
either I
yeah,
did it with
yeah,
Tommy first, or
yeah,
you. No, I think you did one with
yeah,
Tommy first, and then
yeah.
I got in touch with you, and you came on my show, and
Yeah.
so we've done
You know
loads of
what?
stuff
Like,
before that.
amazingly enough, do you know that like I wasn't like doing any of the I was never going on anyone else's podcast or stuff like that.
Yeah,
That conversation with Tommy Robinson was my first ever interview with anyone, right?
yeah,
And I only went over there to talk to him, right? Like
yeah,
just to let him know like the urgency of the
yeah,
problem. And
yeah,
obviously he knew it, but I
yeah.
wanted to like tell him. And
Mm,
my main purpose was to tell him that the Christianity is the way forward, right?
mm.
And this is what we're going to talk about now. Let's talk about that now anyways.
Yeah,
Like, so we've closed that chapter anyway, so you've been with Unite the Kingdom, and that's how, even before, like you said, we know each other, and we've known each
yeah,
other more since then. And then now you're with Advance UK as
yeah,
well, which I'm a part of as well. And we this is a good political
yeah,
solution, right? But the main, so going back now to the topic of Christianity and the importance of it and the implication of it, or implication of not having it
yeah,
and stuff like that, right? That's what I wanted to convince him. And I think so he had the inklings anyways beforehand, right? And I'll tell you why as well, because few months before the October 7th attacks and stuff,
yeah.
I could sense there's something coming, right?
Hmm.
I could sense in the social medias and stuff like that, and the stuff that these Muslim Dawa boys were producing. I was like,
Yeah,
oh, they're getting a bit haughty. They're getting a bit like, there's something going on. There's something massive that's going to
yeah,
go on. I went on a podcast of these atheist people and stuff like that. And I told them that. And I told them that something is coming, something big is coming, right? And the only way that we're going to fight this off now is Christianity. I don't care whether you believe it or not. Obviously, they laughed it off, but they would, and that's what I want. That's what I've seen, and I've lost people because of that reason of promoting Christianity. It's like, well, fine, I don't care, right?
Yep.
I am on a journey myself. I won't call myself like a committed Christian now because I haven't been baptized, right? But if I will be, nobody would know. Like it's a private matter. Uh, but I am pretty much convinced there's no way else because this is a ideological evil, right? And you cannot fight it unless you have your own ideological faith
Yeah.
as well, and it has to be a good faith. There's nothing else that encapsulates not just the essence of Britain itself, the essence of Western civilization itself, but also the essence of righteous goodness. There's no other ideology,
Exactly.
there's no other set of faith, belief system that encapsulates that better than Christianity. Now, whether people want to believe in the truth of it or not, whether people want to say whatever they want to say to it, at the moment we don't have anything else. There's and to for Christians there's a reason why there isn't anything else, because that is a truth, right? But this is what I wanted to convince to everyone since then, right? And I went to Tommy Robinson. I kept on telling him that, like, no, this is the only way. We have to go on this, right? We have to go on this journey. Everyone personally needs to go on this journey, and also collectively.
Yeah.
So let's talk about then, why is Christianity important? Not just like, let's forget about the whole of the Western stuff, like just concentrate on Britain.
Yeah.
Why is it important for these isles?
Okay. I think we've got to, we've got to go on a real sharp history lesson. I mean,
Mm,
and again, I'll give a bit of personal testimony. I kind of wandered from the faith in a big way for about 4 or 5 years, right?
mm,
And I was still I was still very God conscious. I still
mm,
knew what was right and wrong, but I just wasn't living a Christian life.
mm,
And end of 2022, start of 2023,
mm,
started doing a lot of soul searching, reevaluation of myself. And then by the end of 23, I mean, you go through these periods, and it's a tormenting time, to be honest with you, when you've
mm,
kind of abandoned what you knew was true, and you're coming back and you're going, oh, actually, you know, this was not a good way to be, and you come back to God. And so end of 2023, I was really getting serious about my faith again, and I met a Christian lady at the Tommy Robinson, one of the Rape of Britain events in
mm,
Telford, right? And she came up to me at the end of the event. She says, I really feel we should pray for Tommy Robinson on the
mm,
stage, on the platform. And I says, do you know what? I says, I don't think he's ready for that yet. I says, I
mm,
don't think that's for now. I says, but what we should do, I says, I've just told us, I've just come back to God. I says, I was, kind of back, what we call in
mm,
Christianity, backslidden. I kind of lost my way a lot. And I says, I'm now getting serious about my faith again. And I think what we should do is meet and pray for Tommy. And we met every week
mm,
for, well, what we're 2026 now. We kind of stopped back end of last year when I started doing my own sort of Christian broadcasts
mm,
on the on my own channels. But we still meet occasionally for prayer.
mm,
And we got a little group of Christians together, and we prayed specifically that Tommy Robinson would come to faith.
mm,
And the other thing we prayed for was that the movement would be Christianized, that the movement
mm.
would become
Yeah,
not you can't force anyone to be a
yeah,
Christian,
no,
but what
no.
we would do in that the movement would
Have the
promote
spirit of Christ.
Christianity. Yeah,
Yeah.
the movement would start to promote. Now we prayed that very, very
Mm,
specifically from January 2024 onwards. Obviously, we had the meeting in London,
mm.
July 2024, I think it was, wasn't it? The United Kingdom meeting, the first meeting, when and
No,
and and,
no.
and
Was it
our brother
24 or
Father Calvin
23?
Robinson, he's
Yeah,
the man that's
yeah,
behind United Kingdom. I
yeah,
keep bigging him up on this. I don't know if he's going to get seeing this, but
yeah,
I was sitting next to Calvin, and we're going, what are we going to call this? And all these different
yeah.
names were bounced about. Obviously, we're doing the pledge as well at the same time. All
Mm,
these different names are bounced about. And remember, you were sitting to my right, Calvin was sitting to my
yeah,
left, to my left.
yeah.
That was a very
Yeah.
diverse group I was in there, Momus. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Pakistani on one side,
Yeah.
a half Jamaican guy on the other.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that to trigger certain people because it'll really wind up that you know
Yeah.
who I'm on about, don't you? The
Yeah.
dribbly flipping white supremacists.
Mm.
But anyway, and Father Calvin, he turns around, he says, uniting the kingdom.
Mm.
United, and he said it's not just about the kingdom of the United Kingdom, it's
It's the
about the
kingdom of
kingdom of
Christ.
God
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
That's what he said specifically, right?
Mm.
And Lawrence Fox was sitting to his left as well, and Lawrence, yeah, that's
Mm.
really good, so that was
Mm.
brilliant, right? That was brilliant. So
Mm.
and then actually before that, on St George's Day in 2024, for the first time ever, almost everybody at that event that was speaking spoke about God,
Yeah.
right? And I'm not saying that
Mm.
it was only me and my friends
Yeah.
praying that caused that, but God
Mm.
answers prayer, right? So
Yeah.
that was a real answer to prayer that we'd started praying in January 2024, and by April 2024,
Mm.
people were holding the Bible in the air and reading from the Bible and calling people to faith in Christ.
Mm.
So that was a massive breakthrough. And then of course, in the first Unite the Kingdom event,
Mm.
Speakers Corner Bob spoke. We had those two guys with the flag reading the Lord's Prayer, and we had other
Mm.
Christian speakers. And since then, the Christian elements of our movement have grown. And I'll
Mm.
be honest with you, I think that's a very healthy thing, as
Yeah.
long as we don't try and use Christianity for our own agenda. What should
Yeah.
happen is the right way of doing this is basically Christianity, people's lives are changed as they become Christians, right?
Mm.
And, when I kind of fell away from God, I was very aggressive. I was getting very, grumpy with everybody, still can be grumpy, but God, what God does, he takes men that have potential for great evil and great
Mm.
wickedness and great violence and turns them into something completely different. So,
Yeah.
it doesn't turn you into a sissy or someone that's
Mm.
weak, but it gives you it gives you a lot of self-control and a very measured
Yeah.
personality, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I would love to see in every single
Mm.
person in the movement. I
Mm.
mean, Tommy is again finding his own way with Christianity, and a lot
Mm.
of people talk about, how's Tommy doing spiritually? And my answer is, do you know what? He's got to work out his salvation with fear and trembling, like we all have
Mm.
to, and we all need to do the same. We all need to
Mm.
come before God and say, Lord, whatever you want me to do, I'll do, but I need your
Mm.
help. And I think
Mm.
that's a position that we've all got to come to. So it's not like the Christianity is there to be used for political means. It's the other way
Mm.
around. The political movement, if it becomes Christianized, will by default become a better movement with more honest people, more integrity, more
Mm.
kindness, more love, more care for each other. That is what genuine Christianity is. And that's why if Muslims saw that, if Muslims saw what Christianity was,
Yeah.
would they come across to Christianity, or are they too far down the rabbit hole? Because obviously they believe that we've all committed
I think
shirk,
so.
don't we? Because we
A
believe in
lot
the
of
Trinity.
them. I think so. A lot of them, like in the Middle East, like not. I don't want to exaggerate the numbers or
Yeah.
something because I don't have the data on it properly,
Mm.
right? And there is a point of like within the social media circles and stuff, people big up a lot of things like than they actually are. But I think so there's a certain amount of people who are converting in the Middle East or around those Islamic countries as well is because they're seeing the real Christianity over there, right? Like, because that's the Christianity that is true to its form, because it's there under very difficult circumstances, and it still is actually putting out its message. Over here for a very long time, it's sort of like a very diluted version of it, so people won't get attracted to it, right? Because when you're leaving Islam, or when you're leaving such a violent, such an aggressive ideology, you
Yeah.
want to go to a team that will protect you from it, right? You don't want to go to a team that will say, oh yeah, this person, you can have him, like, do what, well, yeah, because he
Yeah.
is offended. That's what you don't want. I think so that protection, unless there's a robust Christianity, not just in the streets and in the daily life of people in that sense, but also within the political, sphere, as in it reflects our policies properly. We won't see that, but when it happens, I think so there will be we can facilitate people actually leaving the religion. And that's why I think
Well,
so it's important for Christianity to be there, because nothing else can actually,
I agree.
resolve these issues.
And I think in terms of religious freedom, those laws should. I'm sure they're already on the statute book that somebody should be able to
Mm,
convert and move away from their religion without being in fear of intimidation.
mm,
Um, so I think those laws need to be protected. So if somebody leaves Islam and becomes a Christian, they are
mm.
protected by law. And if anyone molests them, they get a prison sentence. If somebody tries to
Yeah,
say,
it
for instance, you
should.
became, yeah,
Yeah, but like what should happen,
and,
and
and
what
what does
does
happen?
happen is like so many different things, right? Because I feel more threatened over here than like if I'm in Poland, right?
Yeah,
Being an ex-Muslim, like there's more threat over here. If I'm sent to prison, what's gonna happen to me. So
me too, me too.
exactly, you know.
Yeah,
So I mean, so this is very important as well. Like this is why I wanted to talk about Christianity, because I think so what I concluded for a very long time is that this is the only sort of way. Now people might see that, oh, I'm using it as a utilitarian, right, like Christianity, but I'm not actually. I'm just saying like this is the only way where you can control the extremes of everything, right? Like if you are a good Christian, you good believing Christian, you won't go to the extremes of any other ideology, any other political ideology, whether it be like say even civic nationalism,
yeah,
right? Like you wouldn't want to go, because you would understand the reasons why there's separate nations, why the separate nations have to have whatever, right? You won't go to the extreme of nationalism because you would understand that God has made everyone in His image, right? And
exactly.
you won't go to the extremes of whatever, Nazism. You won't go to the extremes of uh whatever communism, because like God is supposed to be there. You won't go to the extremes of liberalism because you can't be that, like you need to have some social conservatism. You won't go to the extremes of socialism because like God is not anti money. God is not anti enterprise and stuff like Christ. So this is why I think so. This is the sort of like a catch all, right? This is why the Western civilization has worked so well, because it has always been, yeah, there has been ups and downs. There has
Hmm.
been people who have interpreted it wrong things. They have used the religion for their own benefits and
Yeah,
stuff. But overall, when we see overall,
yeah,
where is all the progress coming from, right? Where has all the technological advancements come from? Where has all the civilizational advancements come from? Well, there has to be a reason, right?
yeah. I agree, I mean, even if you look at the British
Hmm.
Empire was founded after Britain came out of an amazing Christian revival that lasted for a
Hmm.
few hundred years from the Puritans. Oliver Cromwell, obviously, Oliver Cromwell was a politician and I suppose a military man. He wasn't a theologian or
Hmm.
an evangelist, but it was Cromwell and the changes that Cromwell made, and that Protestantism made in the UK that made the big change. And it's a specific sort of Christianity that made the Western world. It's basically
Hmm.
Protestant, to a large extent, Reformed Protestant, some cases Methodism, that
Hmm.
made the UK and the United States what they are. And that's
Hmm.
why the Anglosphere is unique.
Yeah.
It's not just that we share a common language, and this is what's been forgotten. We share, to a great extent, a common faith. Now, obviously, there's all sorts of other things that you throw in there, but
Hmm.
at the root of everything is that, like you said, the belief that we're all made in the image of God.
Hmm.
The belief that everybody is fallen. So, in other words, that's why people get second chances, because
Yeah.
you look at my life
Hmm.
5 years ago and you go, man, that guy's a mess.
Hmm.
I still look a mess, but I'm actually all right on the inside now. But so I think all of those things are unique to Christianity, and
Hmm.
because we've swam in Christian waters for so long, we've forgotten what sweet waters we're swimming in.
Yeah.
And when you look at what happened when communism took over China and
Hmm.
Russia, North Korea, Cambodia, Vietnam, disaster,
Hmm.
absolute catastrophe, right? East Germany, the Eastern Bloc, catastrophe for so many people enslaved by that
Hmm.
monstrous ideology. You look at what happened with fascism, and fascism was not,
Yeah.
people say it was Christians that killed the Jews. No, it wasn't.
Hmm.
Fascism was not a Christian ideology. It was
Hmm.
an Odinist, it was a kind of
Yeah.
it was based on Norse legends and this
Yeah.
idea of the Superman. It was inspired by
Mm.
Nietzsche and obviously and then the old German and
Mm.
Scandinavian folklore, and they made their own mythology and their own
Mm.
ideas. And in fact, Hitler despised the idea of biblical Christianity and despised the
Mm.
idea of Christ because he saw him as weak,
Mm.
and so fascism and communism are not Christian
Mm.
ideologies.
Mm.
Yes, they may have had their roots in a Christian ethos
Yeah.
somewhere along the line, but they certainly weren't Christian. So when those things take over, that's why I'm so much against ethnonats, because
Mm.
to me, they are just mirroring Hitler. And I
Mm.
understand why people become ethnonats, right? I
Mm.
understand why they do it, but I don't
Mm.
agree with it. I think it's morally wrong. I think it's morally flawed. Like the ethnonat says Momus has to go. Simple as
Mm.
that. I mean,
Mm.
it's like it's no negotiation. Doesn't matter. You've like your wife's here, your family's here. You've made a career here. No. You're the wrong colour. You've got to go.
Mm.
So all of those ideologies are ungodly and are wicked, and it's the same with Islam.
Mm.
Islam is a supremacist. It's a heresy of Christianity. It is a
Mm.
heresy of Christianity. They've taken little bits from the New Testament, taken little bits from Judaism, probably bits from Zoroastrianism as well, and
Mm.
they've mushed it all together and made it into this supremacist religion. And I think Raymond Abraham speaks very, very well about
Yeah,
this. He
he's
says,
really
"Look,
good. Yeah.
the reason that Islam's so successful, it's a win-win for the Muslim if they're going to conquer,
Mm.
because if they win and they get the war booty, well, they get as many women as they want, they get all the treasure from the people they've conquered, and they're the victors. If they die, they go to their
Yeah.
sensual paradise and they get the 72 virgins. And
Yeah.
that's been in not the Quran, that's been in Islamic theology from the very, very
Yeah.
beginning, right?
It's Vikings on steroids, isn't it?
Vikings on steroids, yeah, and so Christianity is the best because in many ways, Christianity appears the weakest,
Mm.
but it's not, because that weakness is its strength, or that perceived weakness is its strength.
Mm.
When the Anglo-Saxons came to what became England, came to Britain
Mm.
after
Mm.
the fall of the Roman Empire, the Romans had Christianized Britain to a certain
Mm.
extent. You had people like Patrick who were,
Mm.
they'd become Christians under the sort of the Roman influence. The Anglo-Saxons came in with their false gods, Odin, and their law codes and their
Mm.
blood feuds, and England became a very bloody place.
Mm.
There was feuding, there was battles, there was all sorts of savagery. Women were not valued. It's kind of like what's happening now in certain communities, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Under
the irony is
Islam.
the Anglo-Saxons, that everybody, the white supremacists kind of, and the ethnonats hanker back for the Anglo-Saxon heritage. Well, the Anglo-Saxons were savages,
Mm.
okay, until these little monks, these little Irish monks from Bangor, were
Mm.
in Northern Ireland, came across on the little coracles, came to Iona, came to Lindisfarne, and started going through the highways and byways, finding the local chieftain, preaching the gospel of Christ to them. And if they converted, great. If they didn't convert it, obviously it was for
Mm.
the evangelists. But they were willing to pay that price. And little Irish monks
Mm.
re-evangelized Scotland and the north of England. Then
Mm.
from the south, you had Saint Augustine, not the Saint Augustine that wrote the Confessions, but Augustine, who was sent specifically to England to convert the
Mm.
Anglo-Saxons back to Roman Catholic doctrine, Roman Catholic faith, and those two streams of Christianity, eventually the Roman Catholic stream won, and the Celtic Christianity kind of was pushed back to the margins, but they re-evangelized what became the United Kingdom, what was then
Mm.
England,
Mm.
Scotland, and Ireland, and Wales. And they obviously weren't called that then. They were known by different
Mm.
names, but they re-evangelized the country. And since then, so since I suppose 700-800 AD,
Mm.
the UK wasn't
Mm.
called the UK then, obviously, but the British
Yeah.
Isles
Yeah.
were Christian
Yeah.
kingdoms, right?
Mm.
And the kings and the people in power were Christian. And of course, the Anglo-Saxon law codes then came out of it. The Christian law codes, the You had Bede doing all his
mm,
writings. You had then Magna Carta came out of it
mm,
when the Normans came in and the barons rebelled
mm,
against King John. You had John Wycliffe, who translated the Bible into the English language around 1200 and something. And of course, he had his men, the Lollards, who went around preaching from this English version of the Bible, and the English that was written in, we wouldn't even understand it now.
mm,
It was very, very archaic. And then you go forward, and you have William Tyndale, who translated the Bible from the original Greek and Hebrew, and paid for it with his life. You had the Reformation in England, and that's all that torment and torture and bloodshed. And
mm,
again, I'm not Roman Catholic. I'm not Roman Catholic for a reason, because I think Roman Catholicism held Christianity back to a great extent.
mm,
I'm a evangelical Protestant, and I'm not ashamed to say that. Incidentally, I'm not condemning my Roman Catholic brothers and sisters. I believe that
mm,
you can be a Roman Catholic and be a Christian, but I'm just saying it doesn't give you the full liberty
mm,
that the Protestant faith does, to basically read the Bible for yourself, under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, and understand what the Bible is actually saying and what God's plan is for your life. So England went through the Reformation, it went through all those torturous times, and eventually came to a settled place, I suppose, around the mid 1700s. You had all the stuff going on in France with the revolution towards the end of the 1700s, but you had people like John Wesley, Charles Wesley, Whitefield, William Wilberforce, all those great evangelicals and
mm,
great reformers that were doing all sorts of good social work as well. So the hospitals, the schools, the abolition of slavery, the RSPCA,
mm,
so many things came out of that stream of Protestant Christianity that people don't know or don't understand. And the reason that Britain is a civilized, nice country is purely because of Christianity and because of the influence of
because how it
Christianity
shaped it.
over.
Mm,
And look how long it took to get
mm,
from the savagery of Anglo-Saxonism, where they were literally chopping each other up in blood
mm,
feuds, to the sort of 18th, 19th century, when things were settling and things were calming. There was still a lot of poverty, there's still a lot of injustice, still a lot of bad stuff going on, but the country is settled, and it's
mm,
becoming this great United Kingdom that then goes on to conquer most of the world, not through force, but through commerce,
mm,
and through good governance,
mm.
and through democracy, which all came out of which were all Christian principles. They all
Yeah.
came. Everything that we have in the West. Okay, people say democracy comes from the Greek idea of democracy, but it doesn't really, because the Greek
Mm,
and Roman ideas of democracy, they weren't really democratic, because if you're a slave, you still had nothing, you know.
mm,
So everything good that we have has come out of Christianity, and I think people have got to realize that. But as well as that, it's also a genuine, personal, living faith in the God of the Bible, in Jesus Christ, and
mm,
his. I always say this when you talk to Muslims, it's a very easy way to just explain the difference between Christianity and Islam. In Islam, the God of Islam wants you to die for your faith.
mm,
In Christianity, the God of Christianity died to give you faith.
mm,
That's the difference. That's the difference. That God came, hung on a cross in the person of Jesus Christ, hung on a cross, and the Father didn't spare his Son. The Father poured the wrath that every single human being deserves onto his own Son, so that we can go free. That's the story of Christianity. Now, Islam doesn't have that. Where's the redemption in Islam? How do you know that you've done enough?
mm.
How do you know you've done enough jihad to get into
You never
heaven?
know. You never know.
You're right.
That's why you have to keep on doing it.
You've got to
You
keep
never
doing it,
know.
because you're walking on a razor's edge. You don't have I done
Yeah.
enough? Have I killed enough infidels yet?
Mm,
You know, and
yeah.
and again, when you look at Islam, you're rewarded for killing people.
Mm,
You are rewarded for
yeah.
murdering people.
Yeah.
Now think about that. That must be satanic.
Mm,
If the New Testament's very clear. There's one little phrase in John's first epistle where he says, and he says it several times, God is love.
mm,
So that's not just an attribute of God. That is a description of the very essence of God. That the God of the Bible is love.
mm,
Does he punish sin? Yes, he has to, because he's love. The
Mm.
reason that God hates sin is because he's good,
Mm.
not because he's a God that's angry and wants to punish,
Yeah.
and that just can't wait to break out and
Mm.
burn up a few infidels. No, God hates sin because he's good and he knows the damage that sin does to all our lives and does to his creation. And
Mm.
that's been the story since the beginning, since the Garden of Eden, since the original fall. So theologically, historically, Christianity is a force. It's not just a force for good. It's really the only good there is in the world. Now that's something to think about. If God is love and the God of the Bible is Jesus
Mm.
Christ, then our God that we worship and serve is the only force for good in the world. There is no other force for good. Everything
Yeah.
else comes out of that Christianity. Everything else is a poor imitation of it. So it's vital to everybody that's watching that they understand and make a decision on
Mm.
what way they go, on how they want to, whether they want to accept this or just say no, it's not for me. I don't believe any of that nonsense. It's archaic rubbish, which you hear people saying, and then when they're in a foxhole and they're in a tight spot, oh God help me, you know. Well, you didn't want the help when you were
Mm.
doing really well. Now you want it now, you know.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
I remember Jesus Christ was Jewish as well,
Yeah.
which annoys a lot of people.
Yeah. I think so. That's a very good point to end the conversation, because I want people to take this thought and ponder over it themselves, right? And hopefully, like, we can come back to it, like we can have further discussion, because it's a discussion that needs to be had over and over, and on various different angles. But I think so this is a good point for people to take this what you've been saying, and just ponder over it with the weight of history, right? And not just their own selfish desires and stuff. So yeah, that was really good, I think so.
Good.
Thank you so much for
No,
coming
thanks for
on.
having me.
No,
Moses, thanks for having
it's
me.
been
It's
brilliant.
appreciate it.
Like, we've done few lives, but we haven't done a recorded proper
Mm.
one. So I wanted to do that. And anyone who wants to become a YouTube member or subscribe to theworldofmomos.com, the next segment is for you, silly questions with Richard. Thank you everyone for watching, and thank you Richard for coming.
Great stuff. Thanks, Moses. See you soon.